Hello, welcome back to episode 14 of the October Instrument ACS Rundown. Today we're just going to do an overview of everything that we have looked over the last 14 days. So let's get into it. All right, so this episode is only going to be a couple minutes because we're just going to do a brief overview of what we covered. So, the first thing is I'm looking here, we have already covered pre flight preparation. We've gone over pilot qualifications, weather, and I've showed you guys where to find that information. A lot of it is straight in the Pilot's Cafe. That's all you need to go through. The next portion is cross country flight planning. We looked at that, it's pretty. Kind of similar. You just really need to know the charts and know the legends and understand where that applies. Now, we went into pre flight procedures, area of operations too. And here we covered systems and instrument flying, basically the operations into that. That wasn't too difficult, but again, we just always want to make sure that we understand what our flight controls are and how we operate in icing conditions. Then we looked at our instruments and navigation equipment. This covered our VOR, the ILS, the GPS, the MFD, PFD, the gyroscopic precession, the pedostatic system, all of that. A lot of information all wrapped in one. Now, like I said, this is going to primarily be covered also into approaches because they are some of the approaches you'll have to fly. And so that's why in this next section, it's going to be a little different because, like I said, a lot of what we're covering in the next section is going to be covered in the air. But we have to have a good basic ground level knowledge of what's happening. And that's all the DBE is going to be looking for. They're probably going to have you look at an approach or two. They want you to just read through it, make sure you know how to read an approach, what type of rules are going to be applied depending on whether you're shooting an LNAV, a VNAV, an LPV, a VOR, an ILS. They're all going to be varied, and that's what we're going to be covering in this next section, as well as what's happening. We're going to have to circle, whether we're going to have to miss, and what happens when we have a partial panel. All of this is what we're going to be covering in the next 2 weeks. We just had to lay the groundwork first in this first couple weeks to really hit what our pre-flight preparations were, how we're going to be able to talk to ATC, the clearances, as well as just how our basic flight instruments work. But now we can get into the fun part. So I will see you guys in these next last 2 weeks covering our instrument approach procedures, as well as our navigation systems and our emergency scenarios. So let's do it.